What's up, guys? Today I have another video for you, and today I'm going to be going over these two pens I have in front of the camera right now. These two pens are both Pelikan M250 series pens. They were a pen, I think, that was released sometime like around the 90s, early 90s, and then they were discontinued sometime in the early 2000s, I believe. And you can kind of see the two different styles here. I think the trim and the cap styling changed during, I think, 1997, like sometime in the late 90s, before the series was discontinued. This older one is actually a special edition that was made for Levenger, and you can see it kind of has the really nice brown tortoise that the M800 brown tortoise was made out of. It's the same material. So in the older style that was made pre-97, it actually had this derby cap, as you can see, which is rounded off, versus what more traditionally Pelikans have these days, which is this crown. In this case, it's actually a black crown. The major difference between the Levenger edition of the 250 pre-97 and the standard one is just, I think, this trim ring here on the piston knob. I think the standard 250s from that era didn't have this trim ring. It was just a plain black, well, not black, but depending on the color that you got, it was just a plain piston knob. And then meanwhile, when they went over to the new style with the crown cap, they went from the two cap bands to the one cap band, and then they added this extra trim ring here at the piston knob. So recently, these pens, especially this size of pen, has kind of become my favorite. The problem with Pelikans these days is that they're kind of going up in price, and even for something like like the 200, which is steel nibbed, I think best you can do is probably like $80–90 new. They average much higher, usually around $100 to $120, and they're kind of up there in price. And you are just getting a steel nib. Granted, I do like Pelikan steel nibs. I think that they make pretty soft, I guess, if you want to call it, and nibs that have a good amount of spring to them and bounce when you write with them. But still, if you think about the size of the pen and kind of what goes into it, it is a piston filler, but it's not. The main thing is like it just doesn't have the gold, nib, and the finish overall on the 200 series isn't nearly as good as the 600, the Suverons, like the 600, 400, 800, and M1000. And if you wanted to move up and progress in the Pelikan line, the only way you can progress is basically to go up to the M400, and that comes with, in this case it's a 205, so it has silver trim, but the main difference between the 200 and 400 is it's just finished a little better, and I think you get extra trim, but overall, and you get the 14 karat gold nib, but overall I don't necessarily think it's worth that jump in price. Last I saw, 400s were going to like $200 and plus. Now, granted, the 250 series is discontinued. It is still widely available through secondhand market. You can either find them as new old stock, although a lot of people are selling them for quite a lot of money. I've seen some, which some of the rare colors I guess go for like $300–400 for new old stock and package. This one I actually managed to get a pretty good price on, the this Levenger series brown tortoise. I actually only got it for $150, and this included box and everything. This one didn't include a box, but I basically won this. I think it was like a demonstrator pen, like a demo unit for salesmen, and it was, as far as I could tell, it was never inked up, it was never used, and I managed to snag it through bid for $80. And for the standard 250 series, just black or one of the less rare colors, you can find them pretty readily for around $150. And they do come with a very, very nice monotone gold nib, 14 karat gold nib. And these nibs I absolutely love. Oh, let's see if I can get it to focus. There we go. Both of these are fine nibs. I have actually a few of these monotone nibs, and what I like to do is I like to buy up the monotone nibs and kind of put them into my 600. Even though the nib on this is a little smaller than the standard 600 nib, it's not that much smaller, and because I do have an all black M600, I feel that the all monotone nib looks a lot better than the plated, you know, two-tone nibs, or even like the three tones from the earlier era. But the reason why I actually got into these pens was, you know, after I had gotten the 200 or the 205 in this case, I used it and it was okay. But, you know, I had tried a 200 before I had bought, or rather I had handled a 400 before I bought my first 600, and I just felt like it was a little bit on the small side. And, you know, I still think that's a fair assessment, at least for me. I don't think it's the most comfortable for me to hold this for an extended period of time. Actually, you can see here, I actually have on this 205, I actually have a monotone M250 nib on here that was originally oblique medium, and then it was ground into a reverse oblique medium. Like I said, I have a smattering of those monotone nibs all over the place. Ooh, focus camera. But yeah, I still feel the size is a little on the small side. You know, for everyday quick writing, it's not so bad. But anything extended, like anything past 10-15 minutes of nonstop writing for me, and I feel like my hand's cramping up a little bit. Because of just how narrow the pen is. You know, the length isn't too much of an issue. They are lightweight pens, so even if you were to post a cap, it makes it a good length, at least for me. And at the same time, it isn't excessively back heavy, like, you know, like if you were to post a 800 or M1000. But the main reason why I ended up getting the 250 nib again, or the 250, first of all, I got the brown tortoise because I just wanted a pen in brown tortoise, and I couldn't exactly put up the funds for the M800. And I personally, while the M800 is kind of growing on me, I don't really like it that much that I want to spend the money on one right now. And, you know, for me, I wear generally polos with breast pockets, and that's where I'll carry my pens. But as pen, you know, size, like, you know, like the 600 style of pen here, if I were to clip it in my pocket, it would actually sit a little too high. Polo breast pockets don't have the same depth of pocket as your standard dress shirt, I guess. And, you know, I know that these fit in like a dress shirt breast pocket with no issues, but in a polo, it just sticks out, and you kind of have to cant it a little bit to the side, and it just looks a little weird. It looks a little too big for the pocket. So I started carrying the 205, and I loved it and all, but for me, I kind of prefer gold trim. I'm not a big silver trim guy. The only reason why I bought this was because I was messing around with nib grinds and stuff, and I just wanted a cheap body that I could throw like 200, 600 series nibs into and work on them. And I ended up just getting the silver trim because it was on sale. That's the main reason why. And this brown tortoise, I feel, is a little too flashy for everyday use. You know, it's nice and all, and because it is discontinued and not as common, I didn't really want to put excessive wear on it and risk breaking it. You know, I do use my pens at work, and I work in, you know, a manufacturing field, so it's not like I'm sitting at a desk all day and my pens will be perfectly safe. You know, something can happen to it while I'm out in the shop. So I'd rather not get something like this destroyed, because in all fairness, I don't know how easy it is to find this pen anymore. Meanwhile, with these pens, I don't feel nearly as bad, because you still can find these. They're very much readily available. I haven't really noticed them going up in price, at least in the last few years. So if this were to break or get lost, I wouldn't, you know, lose any sleep over it. But that's why I ended up getting this pen. I started watching a few auctions and bidding on a few, and I told myself if I could win one for less than $100, then I would go for it. And like I said, I ended up winning this for like $80 plus maybe like $4 shipping and handling, which was a great deal. I know that people sell the spare monotone 250 nibs on eBay for like $120. So I figured, you know, even if I didn't need the body or anything, getting the nib unit alone for 80 bucks, not that bad of a deal. So yeah, I mean, that's about it. In terms of size, obviously these two 250s will be the same size in terms of length and girth, and it is basically the same size as the 200 series. In turn, it would also be the same size as the 400 series, except like I said, 400 series is finished a little bit better and, you know, has, you know, more trim. And then compared to the 600, you can see the 600 is just ever so slightly longer, and the main thing is that the 600 is a little thicker. When you look at measurements, I think it's only like a millimeter thicker, 1 to 2 millimeters thicker overall. But when you're holding it in your hand, that definitely does make a big difference. And just for funsies, I have my M1000 here. I actually put on this side so you can compare. So yeah, obviously the M1000 definitely definitely makes the 200 series of pens seem, you know, like dwarves. They're very small. But yeah, so in terms of this pen, I highly recommend them. I would actually recommend you try looking for a 250, and, you know, on Fountain Pen Network and stuff, I have suggested to people looking for their first Pelikan to actually look for 250s first before putting down money for a 200, just because you're getting the same level of finish, but in addition, you are gonna get a gold nib, and a lot of people looking into spending more than like $50 or less on a fountain pen, usually the next step they do is they go for a gold nib pen like the Custom 74 by Pilot or the Lamy 2000, and you can find a 250 for lightly used or even new for less than 100, and I think that's definitely worth the price, especially if you're just going to pay the standard street price for a new 200 or 205. But that's just me. Because it uses the standard Pelikan nib unit, obviously if you don't like the gold nib for some reason, you can always just switch the nib out with a standard 200 monotone gold-plated steel nib with no issues. I actually have, you know, I have like a whole bag full of spare Pelikan nib units that I mess with and do different grinds with. But yeah, highly recommended. You could definitely get them for under 100 if you bid for them. I would not pay more than 150 for a buy it now auction. I feel like if you're paying more, you're kind of getting ripped off. Fun story, I actually saw one of these on the Fountain Pen Network, and I'm pretty sure that the person selling it probably bought it from the same eBayer that I did, because I think the eBayer I bought it for had 4 of them, and I only bought 1 of the 4, and they came with broad nibs, and the person was basically selling the same condition of pen on the Fountain Pen Network for like over $200. I don't think it sold or anything, but, you know, I thought it was just funny that if I knew that they would potentially sell for over $200, I probably would have bought all 4 of the brown tortoises, and you know, maybe flipped like 2 of them. I actually kind of wished I had bought a second one to keep new in the box, just because I do really like the finish. I do think that, you know, the brown tortoise is one of the nicer finishes that Pelikan makes, and I'm still holding out that, you know, one day hopefully they'll make a pen with that brown tortoise material, but in a 600 size pen. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and